The theater was buzzing with the usual pre-audition noise, murmurs, polite applause, judges flipping through notes, cameras gliding silently across the room. Nothing about the moment felt special yet. Then she walked out, a shy Filipina girl, barely more than a silhouette under the blinding stage lights. Her shoulders were slightly hunched, her steps hesitant, as if every foot forward took courage she wasn't sure she possessed. She wore a simple dress, no sparkle, no statement, just quiet humility stitched into fabric. When she reached the center of the stage, she clasped her hands together tightly, eyes lowered, breathing shallow. Simon Cowell leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, expression neutral, almost bored. He had seen thousands like her, nervous, hopeful, trembling. The audience settled into an expectant silence, some already assuming this would be another forgettable audition. When Simon asked her name, her voice barely carried across the room. When asked what she would sing, she paused, swallowed hard, and answered with just a few words. The hesitation stretched. The silence grew heavy. No one, not the judges, not the crowd, not even the cameras, was prepared for what was about to happen next. The music began softly, almost imperceptibly, a single sustained chord floating through the theater like a held breath. The girl closed her eyes. For a moment, nothing happened. Then one note. Just one. Pure, steady, and impossibly controlled. It wasn't loud. It wasn't flashy. But it cut straight through the room, silencing every thought, every whisper. That single note carried a weight far beyond its sound, as if years of struggle, fear, and hope were compressed into that breath. Simon Cowell's posture changed instantly. His arms slowly uncrossed. His eyes narrowed, not in skepticism, but in disbelief. The audience leaned forward as if pulled by an invisible force. The note didn't waver. It didn't shake. It bloomed, filling the space with a haunting clarity that made time feel suspended. You could hear someone gasp in the crowd. A judge's pen slipped from their fingers and clattered softly to the floor. And still, she held that note, calm, effortless, fearless. In that instant, the shy girl who had walked onto the stage vanished, replaced by an artist who commanded complete attention without moving a single inch. When the melody finally unfolded, it was like watching a story come alive in sound. Her voice moved gently at first, fragile but precise, like glass spun into music. Each phrase carried emotion, so raw it felt almost intrusive, as if the audience were listening to something deeply personal they weren't meant to hear. She sang not to impress, but to survive, to release something long held inside. Her eyes remained closed, but tears traced quiet paths down her cheeks, catching the stage lights as they fell. Simon leaned forward now, elbows on his knees, mouth slightly open. He wasn't judging anymore. He was listening. The other judges exchanged glances, stunned by the control, the tone, the unexpected maturity in her voice. The audience sat frozen, afraid that even breathing might break the spell. As the song grew, so did the power in her voice, not louder, but deeper. Every lyric landed with precision, each note wrapped in emotion that resonated in the chest. This wasn't just a performance. It was a confession, a moment of truth unfolding in real time. Halfway through the song, something extraordinary happened. The crowd began to react, not with cheers or applause, but with silence so profound it felt sacred. People clutched their hearts. Some wiped tears from their eyes, without realizing they were crying. The girl, once trembling, now stood firmly rooted to the stage, her voice soaring with quiet confidence. She navigated impossible transitions with ease, sliding into high notes so clean they felt unreal. Simon shook his head slowly, a faint smile breaking through his usually ironclad expression. This wasn't shock anymore, it was admiration. Disbelief gave way to respect. As the final chorus approached, her voice softened again, returning to that delicate vulnerability that had captured everyone from the very first note. It was a reminder. Power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers and still shakes the room. When she sang the last line, her voice faded gently into silence, like a candle being blown out in a dark room. For several seconds, no one moved. No applause. No words. Just stunned stillness. Simon Cowell remained frozen in his chair, eyes locked on the girl, as if trying to process what he had just witnessed. Then, slowly, he stood up. The audience erupted instantly, cheers, applause, sobs, standing ovations crashing over the stage like a wave. The girl opened her eyes, startled, overwhelmed, her hands flying to her mouth as she tried to understand what was happening. Tears streamed freely now. Simon raised his hand, and the room quieted again. He took a breath, something he rarely did before speaking. "I don't know where that came from," he said softly, voice thick with emotion. "But that was one of the most honest, beautiful things I've ever heard on this stage." The words hit her harder than any applause. She nodded, crying, barely able to stand as the judges praised her, not just for her voice, but for her courage. That night didn't just change her life, it rewrote it. Clips of her performance spread across the world within hours. Headlines read, "Shy Filipina girl sings one note, Simon Cowell freezes in shock." Millions watched, replayed, shared. People saw themselves in her fear, her humility, her bravery. She became proof that greatness doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it arrives quietly, disguised as nerves and self-doubt, waiting for the right moment to be heard. Long after the lights dimmed and the stage emptied, that first single note continued to echo, through screens, through hearts, through dreams. And somewhere, a shy girl who once doubted her own voice finally understood its power.